Great. Good morning. Hello, all. Welcome to this virtual panel with a handful of the cast and creative team of Walking. The full title being Walking Performance, Ruminations, and Ambulatory Process, which will be performing Wednesday through Sunday, October 12th through the 16th in and around Royal Tyler Theatre. So why don't we go around and just say our names and our role in the piece. I'm Lila Titleman. I'm a lecturer in theater here at UVM. I'm not involved in the piece, but I'm here to ask some questions. So yeah, let's start with intros.
Great, I'll start. I'm Paul Besaw, and I'm on the faculty, the theater and dance faculty at UVM, and I'm directing the sort of theater portion of the larger event and have been involved in sort of kind of putting together the whole thing.
My name is Julian Barnett. I'm also a faculty member here at UVM in the Theater and Dance, and I'm directing the dance component, the site-specific dance performance that's happening before the actual theater performance, as well as the spill into the installation in the lobby.
Hi, I'm Sarah Nelson. I'm also a faculty member at UVM for Theater and Dance. I am the scenic designer for the piece and also the production manager.
I am Helga Schreckenberger. I'm a faculty member in the Department of German. And my research specialty is contemporary Austrian literature. So I'm just here to talk a little bit about Bernhard and his position in Austrian literature.
Hi, I'm Tom Cleary. I'm on the faculty of the Jazz Studies program in the music department. Teach jazz piano, and I'm the composing the music as well as music directing and playing piano in Walking.
Hi, I'm Marty Nadula. I'm a junior at UVM, and I am part of the theater portion of the event, and I am playing Tar in the theater version.
Amazing. Thank you all, and thank you for being here. So Paul, I'm just going to start with a question for you, and that is, can you tell us a little bit about Walking? What was the inception of this piece, and how did you decide on the form that it has now taken?
Yeah, thanks. So I think we have Jets going over again, just to acknowledge that. And also I want to acknowledge Helga's camera is broken. That's why anybody who's watching this can't see Helga. She's having a technical problem, but it's good to have her with us. Yeah, so I think it's sort of a longer story than I should tell for sure, but essentially, you know, I've been affiliated with the dance program for a long time and have a theater background and do a lot of new or original work that involves theater in one way or another. And so when dance moved in with theater in 2019, we became sort of paired in the program. I was talking to the then chair about possibilities to direct and possibilities to really thinking more about new projects, original works or new plays, those kinds of things. So early on in that, I started talking to Katie Goff, who's our colleague in Theater and Dance, who's a dramaturg and sort of theater scholar and has created a lot of original work herself, about a new piece. And we didn't really have any great ideas until I just said, well, I just read this novella called Walking by Thomas Bernhard, and I'm obsessed with Bernhard. I have been for 20 years, and I've been thinking about a very small theater piece that was maybe 2 performers and another performer on film. And I said, we could think about that. So she read it, and initially, I think she had a hard time seeing it, but about a few minutes later, she just got so excited about the text, and we started to think about how to make a theater piece out of it. And so she became key in sort of adapting the text as we created the structure together. So there's a structure for the theater piece, but then we immediately started to think about a larger structure and thinking about Walking as not just the novel by Thomas Bernhard, but as a larger conceptual idea. And one way to think about that was to think about walking in everyday life And because dance had been doing site performances every fall, it made sense to think about something that happened outside, or, you know, outside the theater building, that sort of captured more of a real place, everyday place. So that's where we brought Julian on board, and he immediately was great about like thinking about how to use these ideas and create a performance piece outside this site performance that's in front of the theater building, like you said. So Julian became a key collaborator. For the theater piece, we initially knew we wanted music. Bernhard was a music lover, and his style in writing has a musicality to it. There's a lot of repetition, in his writing. So immediately I said to Katie, we should talk to Tom Cleary, who I'd worked a little bit with, because he's the only composer I know who I think is right for this. And so Tom said yes, and has been on board and has created all this new original music for the theater piece. In the original idea I had this idea to have somebody on film. It's actually the character that Marty plays, who's talked about a lot in the novel. And I thought film would be this great sort of like way to get to know this person, but also distance them as well. So it kind of created this effect that I think is consistent, I hope is consistent with the Bernhard approach to this character. Of course, we bring Marty on stage too, and you get to know that person better than in the novel, but the film piece became really important. So we're working with Miles Jewell, who's a filmmaker, a local filmmaker, who's been this great collaborator, helping us work that into the larger event. And then of course design, you know, Sarah and Bert, our lighting designer, and Emily, our costume designer. Those are key aspects of theater all the time, and they've been really important to this whole thing. And then Helga, it just made so much sense to bring sort of a scholar in Austrian contemporary literature into the process to help us think about Bernhard, his work, and sort of the place from which it comes, the place that it's about. So Helga's been this great sort of person. She's also been amazing on a practical level, helping us get the rights to adapt to the novel. She sort of did all of that for us, which was great. And then of course the student performers like Marty and his gang, and then all the stage managers. So now it was this really small thing has like it's kind of exploded. Last night at rehearsal, I kind of got overwhelmed by all the stuff that's happening, but it's really exciting to see us kind of put this new work together. Sorry, that was probably longer than it should have been, but.
Amazing, thank you. Yeah, so Julian, Paul just sort of spoke to how walking, the process of walking is important to the piece, but for you, I mean, the word ambulatory is in the title, the extended title. So how does that experience complement the content for you, and how are you helping to guide the audience through that journey of walking for a performance?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the nature of site-specific work is already ambulatory or already mobile in its nature. You know, it's very unpredictable in terms of where the audience is going to be, where it takes place. Obviously, it's in front of the theater, so it's outside. That's susceptible to weather. So right away, kind of like, you know, the notions of being mobile was already inherent in kind of like my conceptual thinking of it. But having read the script and the novella over the summer, you know, I'm just a person who's always attracted to neuroses and kind of extremity, and so I wanted to sort of play with kind of the very simplistic nature of like walking, so like the practicality of walking and moving through space, being a mover and a dancer. So, you know, through the site-specific work, we're doing a lot of walking, but also maybe some of the precarity around walking, so falling, running, walking backwards, et cetera, et cetera. And then, you know, the thing that really excited me the most was how, in some ways, this site-specific or this dance element, this physicality, can kind of contaminate or infect the Royal Tyler Theatre. And so, you know, we're really trying to spill or kind of seep into the lobby. And so we're using some fabric to kind of create pathways through that, but we're also just kind of, the performance continues in the actual outdoor plaza, but then it really just kind of segues and moves into the lobby. And there's sort of this trail that the performers create. whether the audience kind of follows and where they are in space, that's sort of the somewhat unpredictable nature of it. It is in a round because it's a square outside of the theater, so the audience can really go anywhere that they want to. How they funnel into the lobby, I think that, hopefully the performance will attract them and will be kind of this magnet to make them move into the lobby. And then once they get into the lobby itself, there's already this installation that's taking place. But yeah, I mean, I think that the ideas around ambulatory, which I had to look up, I didn't actually know what it meant initially, is already kind of part of site-specific performance to begin with. But then I really enjoyed just seeing how we walk and how we stumble and trip and fall, and how that can kind of create this poeticism and beauty, and then also neuroses.
Amazing, I love it. I love the seeping in from the outside to the inside. Which brings me to Sarah Nelson, because you are designing the set, and I'm wondering, as a set designer, the challenges of being in multiple places and trying to have a cohesive performance, especially if one of those places may be the outdoors, which you have little control over. How are you sort of bringing the performance together in a visual way?
Yeah, the multiple locations is a challenge. I think it's a really fun challenge. One of the things about, what I do as a designer is really thinking about, how are the actors moving in the space? And in the theater, that is a little bit easier because the audience is contained and the actors are kind of contained. And so there's a known area for each. And as we add the new locations, the lobby, the plaza out in front of the building, we really are losing the ability to contain certain things. And so there's a lot to think about. How is the audience experiencing that lobby? There's really not. They have multiple ways in which to move through it, and so thinking about how are the performers moving through it, but how are the actors moving through it? How are the dancers moving through the plaza? Where will the audience be? So it's a lot more consideration about where each individual person will be than generally just in the theater. But I think that's it's really exciting, and it gives us a lot of opportunity to play with those environments. Play with things in the lobby that we normally wouldn't, because I think really it's easy to think that the set and the experience starts when you walk into the theater. But even if we're not doing something in the lobby, when you walk up to the building, you're already starting your performance. You're looking at the building, you're seeing what's happening in the lobby. There's the other audience members. And so I think what we're doing with these multiple locations is just embracing that group experience of this performance. But one of the things about how do we make all these locations feel like they fit together? And I like how, Julian, when you said that we're seeping into the lobby, because I think some of what I'm doing is seeping out of the theater into the lobby, looking at things like color, texture. I can't necessarily bring exact elements of that plaza into the theater, but I can look at the colors of it and the variation and the texture and what kind of materials we're using. And so some of those materials that are in the theater are coming out into the lobby. They're coming out on the ground, and thinking about how we carry that message through. We're using them in the film shoot, and so all of these little things are popping up in all of the different areas. And I think that's really what we're doing to bring things together.
Amazing. That sounds so exciting. Great. So Helga, I think in theater, we ask ourselves a lot why we are approaching a text at the time in which we're approaching it. So now being 2022. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about Bernhardt, and also maybe why this text might be an exciting one to revisit and extrapolate in the time that we are living right now.
Well, the text has two main topics, two main themes that Bernhard is preoccupied with. One is his way to his philosophy, how we approach life, actually how we approach death. And as I said to Paul, for me, walking is also, it's not so much about walking, but it's about thinking. And we can think about it to put the two in relationship with each other is to how do we negotiate our way through life, both through walking and thinking, or walking being the expression of the thinking that we have to do in order to find our place in life, in society. And the play, the text seems to suggest that we should not overthink things, that the main protagonist, his mental breakdown is caused because he has overthought things. On the other hand, he is driven mad by society, and that brings me to the other topic that Bernhard is obsessed with, that's Austrian society. So it's the relationship between the individual and society. So how do we negotiate our way within society, and how can we escape the destruction by society, which has little understanding for unusual individuals like the protagonist. So I think that's how I look at the contemporary meaning of the text.
Amazing, thank you. I'm seeing that it says we have 5 minutes left in our meeting. Is anyone else seeing that?
Yes, I did. That's why I was starting to speed up. It said you only have 5 minutes.
Oh, you're on mute if you're trying to.
The meeting won't shut down in Teams.
Oh, amazing. Okay, I just wanted to make sure you didn't cut anyone off mid-sentence. Okay, thank you, Helga. Great. So Paul named a million collaborators on this project, one of which being Tom, who is writing original music for this piece. And I guess my question for you, Tom, is with so many collaborators that come in at different stages of the piece, how do you start writing music? Is it based on the text? Is it based on sounds or words? Is it based on people? Or maybe it's all of those things. So what was your process like for this production?
Well, I think it started with the text, for sure, which is challenging in a really interesting way. I'll just mention that, although I'm trained as a musician and that's my what I do from day to day, I'm also the son of a couple of writers who also owned a bookstore, and the bookstore was named after a 19th century poet, and so am I. I pay a lot of attention to text, and I like starting from text. And I also like playing with different musical styles. And I was just thinking about how a lot of my kind of greatest influences as a composer are people who managed to incorporate different styles that you might think of as foreign to them. I'm thinking of, the Beatles, Kurt Weill, Duke Ellington, and they managed to emulate styles that you might think of as foreign to them, but yet do it in a way that didn't sound like a parody. And so I was reading through this novella, and I noticed that it's, I believe, set in Vienna, and then there's also, and the other another big cultural reference point is there's this line where they say the very best English materials. So I was looking for a place to get started, and I just started by writing something that kind of trying to sound English for English materials, and then I'm thinking about their being in Vienna, and what do I think of as Viennese and 20th century, and I thought of Arnold Schoenberg. So then I was spending some time finding a way for the English madrigal that I came up with to be kind of disrupted by a 12-tone row, which I won't go into the details of. But then I'm also looking forward to it. The music is not all written yet, and I'm going to be working with some recordings of Marty's voice and also some of his live speaking that I'll be playing piano underneath, and specifically with the recording, doing a process that I first tried in a piece that a collaboration with Paul a number of years ago, where I played along to a recording of a spoken voice and followed the pitch contour, the ups and downs of that voice. And then the last thing I'll just mention that was really interesting to me about this is that Paul and Katie both wrote a singing chorus into the script, and I've worked with choirs a lot, specifically jazz vocal ensemble at UVM, and so that was really fun to play with different choral styles. So they kind of sound like a jazz choir at the beginning when they sing this department store jingle, and then we get the madrigal, and then we get the 12-tone row, and it's been just like fantastic working with this group of singers who've been so flexible and adaptable and really can believably sing all these styles, which is very fun and cool. So
Amazing. Thank you. I'm very excited now to see how all of these elements fit together, which I guess is the point of this. Great. So last but not least, we have Marty. And Marty, I know you entered this experience possibly a little later than the rest of the collaborators as a student performer. So I'm wondering what this process has been like for you from the beginning of rehearsal till now, perhaps, and also second part to this question, what do you feel like you want the audience to come away from the theater talking about, thinking, feeling?
Yeah. Well, first of all, working on this project has been crazy. It's been an amazing experience, just because it really is all over the place, both physically and musically, and I really have found it challenging in an enriching way. I've always wanted to uh, create my own character, create my own role, and be part of a new piece of theater. And especially with a show that's so abstract and so creatively bringing in parts from all over, it really has been so fun to just be creative and see what works and see how, when you take the words off the page, how that actually feels. Because since it's never been performed or done before, breathing any life into it is really exciting. And being a part of that has been really fun, because watching it change and shape, even though I came into this process a little later, um, change and shape around the actors, around what we decide, what works, what doesn't work. It's been really, really fun. Um, Not to mention, there's so many different parts of this piece, with the film, the audio, the music, the different performance pieces in and around the theater. It's just exciting to see it all come together and see, um, and taking the narrative of this piece and trying to um, make sense of it. And I think that that's what I want audiences to take away from this. Um, I not only want them to see all the beautiful work that we've all done, but also because it's such an experimental thing that we're doing with all the different parts of it, it feels I'm excited for the audiences to be able to be a part of that creation of the piece, because we have not had an audience yet. And I'm so excited to see how they feel and how they react and what they respond to in this piece, because there are so many things that I think the audiences will find really interesting, really fascinating, some things that they'll probably have to question during the piece, after the piece. And I think it's exciting to see and to try to gauge what audiences will feel like with this piece, because it's still in its early phases. It's never been seen. And yeah, I would love the audiences to come experience that, experience the chaoticness of not only the story, but also of this big bleeding theater event. So yeah, I'm really excited for it, and I'm excited for audiences to see it and experience it, because who knows what it's going to turn into even from here still.
Yeah, the final element of any piece of performance, right, is the audience. But with this one, it feels a little bit more vital to have the
Yeah.
bodies there. So that's very exciting. Great. Well, thank you all. And